Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. When President Biden appeared for a hagiographic interview, does 60 Minutes do any other kind when it comes to Democrat socialists? This was back in September, and he was given the floor to express his grave disappointment.
It's classic.
His shocked conscience over the classified docs at Mar-a-Lago.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen, how anyone could be that irresponsible. And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? By that I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And it's just totally irresponsible.
The totally irresponsible standard. Well, he must be
the breathlessness
just
of it.
Beside himself this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday into this morning, after it was made public that back in November, officials in his orbit found classified docs in his private office that he maintained after serving as vice president, and went to the National Archives with them. The National Archives then turning around asking the Department of Justice to investigate those classified docs. No raid needed.
Well, they were in a locked closet.
No raid needed.
Yeah.
Evan Perez of CNN, even he, the national justice correspondent at CNN, couldn't look past the obvious comparison.
But that said, right, I mean, I think the context that I'm certain you're going to hear in the coming hours, certainly from former President Trump's team, is that you can see how he ended up where he ended up, right? That, how can you prosecute, which is something obviously that is being considered by the Justice Department right now. There's actually a special counsel looking into whether to bring criminal charges in this case. How can you consider bringing charges against Donald Trump when something like this could have happened to Joe Biden? I think.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on Hillary Clinton while we're at it.
Oh, yeah.
For more on this, please be joined by our friend Katie McFarland, former First Deputy National Security Advisor, President Trump, author of Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, incredibly irresponsible was the standard that Joe Biden applied in analyzing the documents at Mar-a-Lago. I assume he'll apply that same standard to himself.
Well, dream on. No, I think that what this shows is that the Justice Department has been weaponized against conservatives, against former President Trump, against any opposition. And if you think that they're going to do to Joe Biden and his classified documents what they did to President Trump and his, again, dream on. So I think what this shows me is it's time for the House of Representatives to form a special committee, special select committee, to look into the abuses of power of the FBI and the Justice Department and whatever masters they're reporting to, whether it's the Biden administration, whether it's Democrats, whether it's only to themselves. When I was just starting out in government in the 1970s, there was something called the Church Committee hearings, the Church Tower. Those were two senators, Republican and Democrat senators, who investigated the abuses of J. Edgar Hoover's Justice Department and also of the CIA. What was the CIA up to? Were they fomenting coups, et cetera? And it revealed an awful lot about both intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA. And it led to pretty significant and massive reforms. Well, it's time to do that again. It's time to figure out and find out whether the people that we entrust with enormous powers, secret, police state powers of investigation and prosecution, have somehow slipped over to the side of becoming persecution. And so I think it's important that Republicans now control the House, and I do think that they need to go to the next step and create a committee and bring this all out in the open. You know, it never would have been discovered. The abuses of power would never have been discovered if it wasn't for Elon Musk releasing the Twitter files, where there's now proof that there was collusion between the Justice Department, the FBI, social media. Now, in that case, it's over COVID and vaccines. But I think once you start opening this can of worms, you'll see that there's a lot more abuse of power.
Well, if the DOJ was politicized and on Biden's side, why would they make this public and take this case up on the documents, which took 6 years to surface, by the way?
Right, but you know, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but where was this found? So the Washington Justice Department and the Washington FBI, they're the guys who are all politicized. It's the other parts of the FBI around the country. Those are really good people. I mean, those are people who join the FBI for a good reason. They haven't been politicized the way that the ones in Washington have as they climb up the greasy pole of power. And so I think part of it is to be explained by that. The other part of it is, you know, frankly, it's in your face. They're not going to prosecute or bring charges against Joe Biden. But it's an in-your-face, the same way that Hunter Biden going on Air Force One, going around the world with his father, going to White House receptions and dinners, that's an in-your-face. Everybody knows that he was corrupted. Everybody knows now, even the Justice Department, not the Justice Department, but even the media admits that Hunter Biden laptop is real, and yet they don't care. It's in-your-face corruption.
Now, I don't want to go full Tom Clancy here, but is there a suggestion, too, that there may be some political skullduggery afoot? Of course, there have to be people within the party ranks that recognize Joe Biden is not prepared to run again, and maybe they want to slow down any announcement he's likely to make about running in 2024, or they want to start to close in on him in terms of pressuring him to make sure he doesn't get too far afield when it comes to thinking about 24?
You know, there's probably an element of that in it. I do think at the end of the day they're going to try to push him aside, and the sooner they do it, the better, because if they wait until the very end to sort of somehow that Joe Biden doesn't run again, then you're kind of stuck. The Democrats are stuck with Kamala Harris because she's going to announce that she's the heir apparent, and if it happens really late in the game, it's difficult for any other Democrats to get in a primary, you know, get into a significantly raise money, become primary candidates, etc. So I think that the major guy who could challenge Joe Biden for the nomination is Governor of California, Gavin Newsom. He's already said, well, I'm not going to run if Joe Biden's going to run. So maybe there is something to it, but I don't think it's gathered a full head of steam yet. I do think it will, though, during the course of the year.
Yeah, but the DNC would be shooting themselves in the foot because Kamala Harris, they know she can't win on a national level. There's
Totally.
no way. I mean, she's an embarrassment.
Totally, Amy, you're so right. That's why the sooner they announce, sooner they get Joe Biden to step aside, the more time it is for other candidates in the Democrat Party to emerge as significant challengers. The longer they wait, the more they're stuck with Kamala Harris. And Amy, you're absolutely right. There's no way she's going to win election for dog catcher, much less president of the United States.
President Biden, Mr. 10% there, made a quick run through El Paso over the weekend because he's serious. He's all in on border security, as you know. I wonder this act that's not getting a lot of attention because of the photo op he did over the weekend, which is the end of last week, the Biden administration announcing they'll grant an additional 30,000 visas a month to Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Cuban, and Haitians if they apply from their home country. This is, I guess, their grand solution to stop the influx at the southern border. But Mary Anastasia O'Grady had a good piece about this in the Wall Street Journal, which is we've seen this act before from dictators in this hemisphere, and it's essentially an extortion play by the dictators on America. And this usually happens when a Democrat's in office. It happened, Castro did it to Jimmy Carter, and now we've got Maduro and others doing it to Joe Biden. Do you agree with her that that's what this is, and this is a bad move to offer these additional visas to those countries? Yeah,
it's bribery, right? It's pay us off. This is what the dictators of those countries are saying. Pay us off, or we're going to send you. We're going to help send you a lot more migrants to your border. The way President Trump approached it was, we're cutting off aid right now. And unless you keep your people there, unless you prevent that massive migration of people, we're never going to give you any aid again. So it kind of flips it on its head. But the whole thing with the Biden administration and President Biden going to the border, having ignored it for 2 years, he's terrified. They're all worried that they're going to have these hearings. Republicans are now going to have hearings on the safety of the border and the fact that the Biden administration, by just walking away from it, pretending it didn't exist, has effectively turned over control of the southern border to the human traffickers and the drug cartels. That's who's running the border, not U.S. border agents, not the U.S. government. It's the drug cartels. And so I think that's why President Biden was sort of pressured into showing up at a photo op. And as we all seen, the photo op was, it's called Potemkin Villages. They kind of swept it clean, made sure there were nothing bad looking here. And so Biden, whether they're trying to fool Biden and he really doesn't understand that there's a problem, or whether he does understand and they're all thinking they can fool the American people because they have the Democrat-controlled media on their hands, I don't know. Either way is pretty bad.
Well, Biden did see a sanitized version. I mean, he didn't even meet with any of the migrants that were there.
No.
What migrants? There are no migrants.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
Oh, they're all in the second ward right in front of that church, but he didn't bother. And they tried to clean up some of the garbage. But what can they do about Mayorkas? Because he lied in front of Congress and said that the border was secure.
You start having hearings and get these guys under oath where there's obviously a lie, and then you can start impeaching them. The one thing I've learned in having worked in the Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Trump administrations is that there's only so much oxygen in the Oval Office. And if the House of Representatives with a whole myriad of committees can bring them to heel over, the censorship at Twitter, the Department of Justice overreach, the Hunter Biden laptop, the Afghanistan debacle, the border, they're all going to be so preoccupied defending themselves and defending themselves probably against each other that they're not going to have time to do a whole lot of more bad stuff. So I'd like to see the next 2 years be completely consumed by investigating these guys, while at the same time, people who are running for the Republican nomination can stake out their policy positions so that by 2024 in November, you can go to the American people and say, okay, here are Republican candidates. They're terrific. They're running on this other policy. Or you want these other guys, either the old guy who's corrupt or all the new guys who are corrupt.
Well, to the extent that occurs, that will be at least in part predicated on Speaker Kevin McCarthy's leadership. You wrote a piece about said Speaker for Fox News. A lot of histrionics and hand-wringing, but I mean that's attendant to everything in D.C. over the 15 votes it took to get him across the finish line. But you suggest that doesn't mean that he's going to be a weak speaker.
He has an amazing opportunity if he's smart enough to seize it. And it's what I call the crazy boss scenario, where it's a negotiating tactic. And we used it in the Reagan administration, the Trump administration. Henry Kissinger used it negotiating the end of the Vietnam War. Vladimir Putin's using it right now. It's to say, my boss is so crazy that I can't possibly go along with a compromise you're suggesting. And here's why that's effective now, and it wasn't potentially a while ago. Kevin McCarthy has such a narrow lead that everybody knows that if he votes or supports big spending bills, he's out of a job. And his adversary, or the person he has to, the person he has to stand up to, is no longer President Biden. It's no longer the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, Democrat. It's now the Senate Minority Leader, Republican Mitch McConnell, because McConnell is just historically known as a big spender. He's the ultimate king of pork. And so the problem that McCarthy is going to have is Kevin McCarthy is going to be in the House. He's got his he's got his very weak majority. And the Republicans in the Senate are going to say, hey, look, you got to go along with these big spending bills, these omnibus spending bills, because it's in the interest of keeping government going. It's in the interest of compromise and civility. And now Kevin McCarthy can say, I can't do that.
Right.
I mean, I've got this crazy boss. They're going to kick me out. So while the beef about Kevin McCarthy always was that he wasn't a strong guy, that he couldn't stand up to bullies, he's now got a crazy boss theory. He doesn't need a big backbone because he's back against the wall. Now, if he's smart enough to use it, he'll just tell McConnell and the others, no, I can't budge.
Yeah, you go talk to Scott. You go talk to Scott Perry and Lauren Boebert, right?
Yeah, you go talk to those. I got those crazy bosses right here, and they won't let me do it. So we'll see. If he isn't smart and if he doesn't use that strategy, he's out of a job.
Do you appreciate what Matt Getz did and Boebert and holding out just to get...
Look, I'm a big believer. If I were in Congress right now, I'd be in the Freedom Caucus. Because those are the only people who are standing up against this massive spending.
I agree.
For the last 20 years, Republicans and Democrats alike have taxed away, and they've expanded the size of government. The Republicans did it after September 11th by creating a national security state. The Democrats did it after 2008 and the financial crisis. And now they're all doing it because of COVID, right? It's more and more government, bigger and bigger government, more and more power over every aspect of your life. And the Freedom Caucus, those handful of members of the House of Representatives are saying, enough. We can't keep doing this. This is how countries and empires decline, is when they spend themselves into bankruptcy. And if you get to the point where the FBI is used to go a secret army to go after the American people, opposition, to go after free speech, if you get the IRS that's going to come after the American people for, I don't know, not selling their cars and paying a tax, then you really do get to the point where you're in a total surveillance state. So I really admire what they've done.
She is KT McFarland, former First Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump. Her book, Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, thanks as always.
It's a pleasure. Thank you both.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, it's Amy, and MyPillow is excited to bring